so I'm back in a wheelchair, again at home, and you can imagine my wife not particularly happy. First time worried, second time she just thought idiot. It's probably right, but anyway, so Ewan comes in to see me and comes for a couple of days. Ends up spending a month living at the house, and we hadn't seen each other for such an ages properly. We hadn't seen each other for a long time. And then, of course, the first thing we talk about is motorbikes. That's pretty much all we ever talk about. And then we started talking about doing Long Way Up, because we'd always spoken about doing a third one. And I remember we sat there thinking, how are we going to make this, we'd love to do this again, but we want to do it differently and make a different experience. And then so Russ and Dave, who help us make these TV shows, came along for a barbecue at my house, and we spotted it. And Russ said, well, what about, he loves sort of record breaking things and things that people haven't done before. And he goes, well, what about doing it on electric motorcycles? And we could be, people have done bits of it on electric before, but not how we wanted to do it. And so we all thought, that's a good idea. One of those things where you think it's a good idea at the time, but without realizing what a challenge it was actually going to be. And so that's kind of how Long Way Up sort of came about, and the electric of it all. I think part of it was about that's the way that's the way the world is going. But part of it was for the adventure and for the fact no one's done it before, and that's how that kind of sort of came about, really.
Yeah, that was very ambitious because I told you I converted this car 7 years ago, 8 years ago or something like that, and it's fine. I mean, it's makes a classic car so much better.
Yeah.
But I drive it around town. I plug it in my garage, and then I know wherever I'm gonna go is not too far. So I just you guys are doing the thing that is like hard, that is out there in the future. That's the ultimate, like hurdle that we have to pass, with electrics. It's traveling, right? And not only are you guys traveling, you're traveling in one of the most remote parts of the world, right? This is parts where like most Americans don't know anything about, which is down there in the tip of South America. That's Patagonia, right? This is about the most remote places that you can go in the world. I'm like, how are you going to be traveling over there with electric bicycles, like motorcycles, like, but you guys did it.
Well, I wish you'd been there to sort of point that out to us, because maybe we would have done something else. I don't know. But,
to your credit, you guys did go to meet my friend Michael Bream at EV West, and he basically told you guys that, right? Like, you guys are crazy. You're not gonna drive that much.
Yeah.
It's like
you're never gonna do it. It's like we left there going, well, okay, well, whatever. Let's ignore him. But I remember arriving in Argentina in Ushuaia, which is in the sort of the bottom of the world, basically, and we were sitting there with these two Harley Davidsons that was amazing bikes, and they converted them for us from road bikes into adventure bikes. So they put a big front end on it, and they jacked up the back. They put panniers on. They did an incredible job of converting these bikes and made them a real adventure bikes. But when you and I were sitting there looking at these bikes, we realized that we'd only ridden them for about an hour. And they weren't for sale yet. They, prototypes basically. And then we had two Rivians as well come along, which was
prototype Rivians too, right?
Yeah, and they were the first and second ever built. And
wow!
So they'd never been built before. So it was. So I think from the start we were pushing our luck, and then we had all this complication about how we're going to charge it, and there's no fast chargers in the whole of South America and Central America. I think there's a couple of fast chargers in some of the bigger towns, but we weren't really going there. And so we had to just plug into people's houses to do 13,000 miles. And then each country has its own
standard,
voltage,
right? Yeah.
Standard. So we had it was, and then of course when you first start driving or riding electric, you have range anxiety syndrome, You think,
Yes.
well, I'm going to leave now, but will I get to where I want to go? And if I get there, how am I going to fill it? And will there be any electricity? But, and it reminded me very much of what it must have been like when the first petrol cars came about.
Yeah, I think
Because,
most people don't think about that. They think,
yeah,
cars, they've been around forever. Roads have been around forever. It's like,
yeah,
no, there's a
petrol
time when they
stations,
wouldn't.
they're everywhere. But,
Yes.
when people first started driving petrol cars, exactly the same things were happening. So you would leave your house, your petrol car that's behind you, your little Volkswagen, and you'd fill it up with fuel, and you'd want to get down the road, I don't know, maybe 30 miles down the road, and you'd fill it up and you'd think, well, I think I can get there. But when I get there, will there be any gasoline when I get there?
Yeah.
Because over here, I don't know what it's like in the States, but over here, originally you could only buy gasoline in a pharmacy.
Oh,
And
yes.
so then you would think, well, and so people had terrible range anxiety whether or not they would make it or not, or make it home even. So
Yeah.
it was it made me laugh. I started to realize I was having the same issues that all these people were. Eventually petrol stations started to come about, and now you can get petrol anywhere. And the same with electric charging now. They're pretty much all over Britain
Yeah,
and
the only
Europe.
difference is that electricity kind of exists everywhere around the world. I mean,
Yeah.
there are remote places that don't have electricity, but for the most part, any of the developed world, modern world, has electricity, some form of electricity, right?
Yeah.
So if you can
And
just
so
tap into it, you're fine.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was our thing, was what we'll do is we'll go along and we'll do what we can, charge for an hour or so, or a couple of hours during the day. But when you're just plugging in, it's slow.
It's
You know,
slow.
it's slow. I
Hours,
mean, it
right?
takes 11 hours to fill a Harley Davidson just by
Yeah.
plugging it into the wall. And so that was shiny. And then we would go to a business or someone's house, and we plug in and we plunge them into darkness, and stuff with the fuses would go, and all sorts of
You
stuff.
blow their
So,
fuses.
they're
Yes.
going along, and the thing was is that people wouldn't say, "Oh, no, go away, you can't do this." They would be going, "Okay, well, if that didn't work, let's plug yours into here, and we'll plug yours over here, and maybe that will work." And people
It
were
becomes
so
an adventure.
generous. Yeah, and people were so generous and so. I mean, people would sit there and they'd say, you come in and you say, how can we stay the night, or can we plug in? And they go, oh, they're electric. And you go, yeah, they're electric bikes. And they go, okay, that's interesting. And so who makes them? We'd say Harley Davidson. And you could see their faces going, are you kidding me? Because that's
Yeah,
not what you would expect, from
world
Harley.
known. Yeah,
So
world known brand of big,
big
motorcycles, right?
thumper.
And
Yeah.
yeah,